Hello, fiction fiends, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Sonja, and I write, and it's a fantastic day to have you back here. My entire Patreon page was deleted. Yup, you heard me right. My patrons, my previous data, my uploads, the page, gone. To cut a long story short, I put in a service request to Patreon to have a previous account deleted that was no longer active anymore. I had my previous account, then I had my creator account, and both were deleted. That's okay though, because I've situated things out. Everything is back up and running again. However, if you were previously a patron of mine, unfortunately, you are no longer subscribed to my Patreon page and channel. Your money has been refunded and you no longer have access to all the treats that I sprinkled into the Sonja Writes page for you. I'm so sorry for this catastrophe, but things are back up and running, and I'd be more than happy to have you come and join the Fiction Fiend family again, because let me tell you, with the upcoming plans I have, you're going to want to take that deal. Oh, but Sonja, the only reason I clicked on this video was to listen to the Guilty Conscience audiobook. I really don't care about your Patreon page. You will in a moment when I explain to you what this Patreon giveaway is all about. If you are a patron of mine on the Sonja Writes Patreon page and you're subscribed to my Patreon channel, your name will automatically be entered in a raffle to win not one, but potentially two prizes. So let me explain. As soon as you sign up to be a member of my Patreon, whether that is through a 7-day free trial with my lowest tier, or if you're a fully fledged paying member, your name is automatically enrolled into a raffle. At random, 2 winners will be selected for a first and second place prize. The first place prize is a fully free 2,000 word commissioned fan fiction or fiction of your choice. So if you win first place prize, I'll write 2,000 words of virtually anything you'd like. And if you win the second place prize, you get 50% off anything you would like me to commission. You can get 50% off a 10,000 word commission or 50% off a 500 word commission. It's up to you. You just get 50% off any of my writing commissions. I urge everyone to sign up to my Patreon page through the 7-day free trial, even if you don't want to stay for long, if you want to just test out the 7 days to maybe see what's going on down there at the Sonja Writes Patreon page. And please don't worry about feeling pressured to join my Patreon. By all means, I don't want anybody to feel forced into joining this. I'm just offering a 7-day free trial if you would like to enter the giveaway raffle for my Patreon page. And because we've reached 30 subscribers on YouTube, woo woo woo! But if you do end up liking it, you're more than welcome to stay. So now that we got that explanation out of the way, you should know that from 5 days from now, I will be drawing our top 2 prize winners, and I will be announcing the names of those winners in my upcoming video. And don't worry, I don't want to hold you off any longer. I know why you're here. The real reason that is, and that's for my fanfiction audiobook. And we are jumping right into the final part of Chapter 4, The Importance of a Seatbelt, right now.
You idiot! The scream came from Fugo, who sat behind the wheel, swerving the van hard as to try to avoid the slowing traffic. While everyone else remained strapped in, YN, who had been sitting without a seatbelt, was sent flying into the backside of the driver's seat. A giggle came from the back of the vehicle, and YN spun to see Naranja, still eating his candy, with a goofy grin on his face. "Damn it," she mumbled to herself. "How many times is this kid gonna see me embarrass myself?" Abbacchio, who apparently also saw her tumble, and Naranja exchanged glances. The smug smirks on both of their faces told YN what they were thinking, that this new chick was a complete fool. And although the 2 mobsters watched as YN peeled her face from the back of the driver's seat, Mista remained fully asleep, mouth wide, head half slumped, and his chin tucked neatly into his chest. She was grateful that not everyone had seen her face plant into the chair. Don't worry about him, the giddy arsonist chuckled. He ain't waking up any time soon. He's a heavy sleeper. Everyone okay? Bucciarati asked. A groan of pain escaped YN, and the boss took her grumbled noise as a, "Yep, we're okay." "Very well. I'm glad no one is hurt," he replied flatly. Yeah, no one except my face, YN thought to herself. A sudden string of curses left Fugo's lips. The van swerved a second time, much harder than the first, and Fugo managed to stick his upper half out of the front side window, all the while his foot still held the gas. "You are a completely incompetent walnut," he yelled at the oncoming traffic. Bucciarati had to grab a hold of the wheel as YN was sent flying a second time, though not into the seat. This time, into Abbacchio. She collided with him much faster than the both of them could anticipate, getting her upper half thrown onto his lap. "Get the hell off of me, you freak," the brute whined. "I'm trying," she whined back. YN pushed herself up, palms splayed against Abbacchio's muscled legs. His hands remained gripping the armrests at his side. He had no intention of helping as she shamelessly tried to squirm herself off and away from him. "Fugo! Your sucky driving made me spill my sour rings." Narancia leaned into the middle section from the back seat. His seatbelt remained buckled as he strained to lean as far forwards as possible. YN ushered herself back into her chair just across from the brute and pressed the belt in with a satisfying click. Ah, the feeling of safety. "Stop yelling, Narancia. You're gonna wake up Mista," Fugo hissed as he slid back in from the window. Bucciarati still gripped the wheel with a single hand. "No, I'm not. Mista sleeps like he's dead. And learn how to drive, you kumquat." "Excuse me?" Fugo whipped around, forcing Bucciarati to grab the wheel with both hands. "Who are you calling kumquat, you pretentious tit?" In seconds, Narancia had unbuckled his seatbelt and launched himself at Fugo, who remained strapped into the front seat. Each boy had grabbed the other with fistfuls of hair and arms swung at the other's face. YN nearly got a shoe to the head when Fugo removed one of his loafers and chucked it at Narancia. She leaned away from the mess of people as Abbacchio poorly attempted to pry the boys away from one another. "Back to your seats. That's an order," Bucciarati barked. The van went eerily quiet as everyone retreated to their spots. A groan came from behind YN and she turned to see Mista stirring. The boy slept like the dead, but that didn't mean he was dead. He scrubbed at his eyes and shuffled around for a moment before letting out a rather obnoxious yawn. "Oh, what did I miss?" "Nothing really," Narancia said. "Just Fugo being a jerk." Bucciarati turned in his seat so quickly that YN thought he might lunge past her and strike the boy. The frown he wore warned Narancia to stay quiet. He didn't speak another word. Not for a little while, at least. The quiet hadn't been the same silky silence that swelled inside the van moments before Fugo swerved. This quiet was uncomfortable. YN decided that she needed to make small talk, somehow, but her train of thought was interrupted by the rumbling of her stomach. "Well, somebody's hungry," Mista chuckled from behind her. "What, did you miss breakfast, lady?" "And lunch, and dinner, and several hours of sleep. I've spent the day chasing you lot around. Haven't really had a chance to snack on anything all day aside from what you handed me back in the pink martini." With his cheeks burning a bright shade of embarrassment, Mista's only reply was, "Oh," before falling silent again. She figured he felt bad for poking fun at her hunger. YN flinched when someone began to tug at her t-shirt. Looking back, she saw Narancia pushing the contents within his palm toward her. It's all I've got left, but you can have 'em." A cluster of semi-hard sour candies sat limply in his outstretched hand. YN knew they were expired. She knew that they'd probably been on the floor of the van from when Fugo had swerved. But she greatly appreciated his efforts. She took the sugary treats and popped them into her mouth, but not before smiling back at the all-too-sweet mafioso. Only a few more blocks until we arrive at the city prison, Fugo said. Though everything seemed to be going well, Wyan still itched with the discomfort that had arisen from the eerie silence. She needed someone to talk. So, what's gonna happen to Galstav? I saw you put him in the trunk before we left, she asked the brute. A more appropriate word could have been tossed. Galstav was not placed in the back trunk by Abbacchio. He was more so thrown, discarded, chucked like a sack of potatoes. But nonetheless, Wyan was curious to hear his answer. Until he didn't. The brute looked Wyan up and down from where she sat, scoffed, and then faced forwards again, adjusting his headphones and crossing his arms against his broad chest. She was shocked by his rudeness. Wyan actually had the urge to smack the scowl off of his face. But then he did speak, and it wasn't the answer she was looking for. You're terrible at creating conversation. Oh, and you're any better? She bit back in offense. I am, he answered flatly. I simply don't want to talk to a low-life rookie like you. Wyan opened her mouth to retort, but quickly fell silent. If he didn't want to talk to her, so be it. A few breaths passed before the silence in the van had broke yet again, and Wyan was relieved to be pulled out of the deafening quiet. It was Narancia. He was giggling. Again. What is it, Narancia? Bucciarati asked from the front seat. But Narancia only laughed harder, bending forwards to hide his head between his knees. Wyan saw Mista chuckling too. He was trying to avert his eyes away from the slender mobster by staring out the window, but he still ended up red in the face and with tears in his eyes as he attempted to stifle his laughter. Narancia swatted at the gunslinger's thigh, trying to get his attention. And when Mista finally looked over, the two boys only began to laugh harder, outright bursting into a fit of hysteria. Wyan glanced to Bucciarati, who peered back at her with confusion. Even Fugo didn't know what was going on. Finally, Abbacchio spun on his seat and demanded an answer from the boys. The hell is so funny to you two? Huh? Why are you cackling back there? Narancia held his sides in pain. He and Mista were laughing so hard that Wyan thought one of them was sure to throw up. Finally, Narancia spoke through broken breaths. I don't know, man. It just smells like fart back here. The two boys erupted for a second time, the sweet sound of laughter filling the van. Wyan couldn't help but giggle at their hilarity. We're here, Fugo announced as the side door slid open, revealing a rather familiar building. The city prison. Still as lifeless as it looked that morning, the prison of Napoli stood tall, staring down at Wyan. She shuffled out of her seat, unclicking her belt and stepping into the van. Someone cleared their throat behind her, and she turned to face the vehicle once more. Bucciarati nodded once, curt, with a small smile on his face. An interesting day comes to an end, wouldn't you say? You know what to do now, Wyan. She nodded and smiled back at the boss. A sudden soft sorrow filled a cavity in Wyan's chest. For a group of mafioso, they'd been nothing she could have ever expected. But they did give her one hell of a time for her first and final day as an official mobster of Passione. She would miss the boys she barely knew. Fugo popped his head out the window and gave her an awkward wave. He leaned back into his seat without another word. Narancia suddenly came into view from the back of the van, his arm resting on the second row of seats, with his dress shoes in hand. You're weird, lady, but maybe if you got your life together, you wouldn't be half bad. He gave her a bright smile and retreated back to his seat. Bucciarati leaned back to scold the boy for his bluntness just as Mista peeked out from behind. He gave her a goofy grin and thumbs up, saying rather loudly, Maybe I can get your number and we... Bucciarati smacked the gunslinger upside the head and began scolding both boys in the back of the van. Damn it, you idiots. I can smell it now. Can we hurry up and leave? Fugo howled, which only made Mista and Narancia crack up again. Even Bucciarati let out a small laugh as he shamelessly retreated back to the front seat and rolled down the window, desperate for some air. And at last, Abbacchio sat with his arms crossed and his eyes forward. His headphones covered his ears. He didn't look to her, didn't say anything, just jutted his chin to Fugo, a silent command telling the strawberry blonde to start the van and drive away. Before Wyan could say anything more, they were gone, driving down the busy street, headed to who knows where. Wyan needed a bath. A long bath. Lots of food, takeout preferably, water, a toilet, and a soft bed. But that would all have to come after her dismissal, after she faced the monster whose cave sat mere feet before her, after she spoke to one of Passione's capos, Pulpo. For the third time that day, Wyan turned to enter the den of the beast, this time a little more prepared than the last.
Alrighty, fiction fiends, that concludes this episode of My Fanfiction audiobook. I really hope you enjoyed. And if you would like to know who is going to be the winner of the Patreon draw prizes, stay tuned for next week's video. And if you want to be in that raffle, make sure you head to my Patreon page, which is titled Sonja Writes, and subscribe for either a 7-day free trial or for a full paid membership. Bye!